Notion is great for like designers or people that like simplicity and they just want basic aesthetic things. But
Yeah.
if you want actual like automations and capabilities and those intricacies, you need Airtable.
That's the hill I'll die on, which is like, I care about your data. I care about you growing your group program, and I care about you automating the hell out of everything so you can just focus on your students and their results and improving your program. Welcome to Systems Famous, the podcast where we're revolutionizing the coaching industry by putting client results first. I'm Ashley Pendergraft, a systems and automation expert with over 5 years of experience in the coaching industry. Let's get into the show. Welcome to this episode of Systems Famous. I have my client, my friend, Debbie here, and Debbie is I'm just going to let her explain herself because I feel like you're an expert in so many things. I'll let you decide what you want to be an expert in today. But Debbie loves Notion. And if y'all know, I am anti-Notion for running group programs and managing group programs. And a lot of y'all come to me and you say, I love Notion. What's the difference between Airtable and Notion? And I decided, why don't I just bring someone onto the podcast who loves Notion, but also uses and loves Airtable too, so we can have a really great in-depth conversation about the pros and cons of both software and when you should use Airtable and when you should use Notion. So very excited for this to be our fight. We can just direct people to this anytime that comes into our DMs because I know we both get asked this question all the time. So Debbie, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell the people what you do?
I am Debbie. I am the founder of Debbie Does. And I guess I started out as an OBM, but specializing in all things systems and funnels. Like Ashley, I'm a tech nerd. I love learning different platforms. I did her systems over stress program, like the first variation of it, I feel like, and fell in love with Airtable. And I recently changed to Notion. And the reason behind that, and I feel like Ashley can relate to this, is I think I have undiagnosed ADHD. The more I learn about it, the more people I connect with online, I'm like, this resonates so much with me. And I had so many different systems that were doing one thing doing this and one thing doing this. And it was all over the place. So I was like, I need one system to try to run my business out of that as much as I can. So I went all in, made the decision to kind of do 99% of my business in Notion. And just like Ashley, it's the number one question people ask. Do you not love Airtable anymore? Why did you move? What's the difference? So that's why we're here today. We thought this would be such a valuable episode to you guys. And I'm so excited to jump in.
Yeah. So tell me about kind of your journey. So what were you using Airtable for? And then when did you decide and like I'm gonna try Notion? Like what was the reason to jump from Airtable into Notion?
For me, because I'm a done for you service provider, I didn't have the group program aspect myself. I was creating Notion hubs for my clients who were coaches to manage their group programs. For me,
Airtable hubs, right? You said Notion hubs.
sorry, Airtable.
Yeah.
Yes, Airtable hubs. But for me, I was using it then for my sales hub, for a content and marketing hub, a launch hub. Even though I wasn't launching, I was trying to edit the launch hub for like one-to-one client delivery and management. I guess there's one big difference between Notion and Airtable, in my opinion. Airtable is like spreadsheets on steroids. If you were a spreadsheet girl, I feel like Airtable, I keep mixing them up, Ashley. Airtable is your jam if you were a spreadsheet girly. If you were a notebook girly or a Google Docs person, I feel like Notion is the best option for you. And that's kind of what drew me to Notion because I love notebooks. I love the simple checklists and I love the aesthetics of it. Creating client facing portals that weren't ClickUp because I don't like ClickUp
Mhm.
portals for some reason, and their interfaces weren't really a thing in Airtable at the time. So that's what drew me to Notion. But I do still use Airtable for some things like my sales hub.
I think that that's such a great and very simple way to explain it because I think of it the same way. I'm like, if you love to bullet journal, you're gonna love Notion and like building it and
Yes.
making it pretty. And It's like spreadsheets is to Airtable as Google Docs is to Notion. Nobody is
Yes,
managing their group program in a Google Doc. So why would you
no,
manage it in Notion?
Notion.
You might make it like people make sales pages in Google Docs. You can make a sales page in Notion. Like
In
anything that
Notion, you
you
can.
do with the Google Doc and make it really pretty and fun and aesthetic, like you can do that in Notion, but nobody is managing their group program in a Google Doc. And I think that that is kind of really helpful delineation that like, yes, you can make tables and mini databases in Notion, but that's not the tool. Like it's Google Docs to Notion, spreadsheets to Airtable is a really great way to
Spreadsheets,
just like kind of
Airtable,
like
for sure.
simplify the differences. So tell me about you mentioned before this that you have a sales hub, and if anybody doesn't know what a sales hub is, we have that in systems over stress. When you make a sale, goes into Airtable and it can do automatic payment plan projections and it can update from projected to receive. It's very robust, so you can see like in like incredible detail. You can group by month, by year, by product, and see how your business is performing. When you are doing your migration from Airtable to Notion, you mentioned that you tried to build that over in Notion. How did that go?
Impossible. And I spent hours last weekend doing it. And the one thing I loved about Systems Over Stress and the Sales Hub was that it's real time data. You can look at your Sales Hub at any time and it's the exact figure that you have cash in, projected payments, it's just correct. So you're not pulling data from all different pages. And I was trying to recreate it in Notion and it would pull in the sale, but the automations that we have in the back end of Airtable cannot be replicated in Notion. They have recently released their automations, but it's very basic. And I was saying to Ashley earlier, the simplest thing is that when you get a sale in, you want to search your client list to see if that person is already a client or a new person, and then link it if they're existing clients. So you can see my client Ashley has bought XYZ. This is her lifetime value. You can't do that in Notion. The Notion automations are great for if you change status to ready for review, tag Debbie. But it doesn't allow you to, number one, search for a record in another database, which is kind of crap. And also, it doesn't allow you to update linked records or relation properties in Notion. So it's impossible to say this sale came in, okay, recorded in my sale hub, and now link it to that client. You can't do it in Notion's native automations. So then, of course, we go straight to Zapier and we try to do that. You can't do it in Zapier either
Yeah.
without a webhook, JavaScript code, which nobody wants. Even Ashley and myself as tech experts, like we don't want to be playing around with that when we're trying to automate our hubs. So you can't do it. It's impossible. So that's been
Yeah,
left to
and
the side.
that's so helpful to hear because I used to before when people would ask me about Notion versus Airtable, Notion didn't have automations until pretty recently. And so
Yeah.
I could just be like, they don't have any automations. So it's like it's dead in the water for me. But now that they had automations, I was like, well, like not, but it's nice to hear, not nice because I wish they
It,
would be better, but to hear that they're just not as robust as Airtable. And that's really, especially as you are growing a group program, you rely on those automations all of the time, not just with sales, but like if a student submits their onboarding form and you want to link it to the student, can you do like select their name in a drop down, like linked records that way in Notion? No. Okay, great. These are the reasons why. Great. Another this was so helpful because I was like, I don't want to do my own research about this. I just want to ask Debbie what's like, I'm like, here's why Airtable is like the best and can Notion do it? Because if Notion could do these things and you love Notion, I would honestly tell you that you could do Notion and we would make a Airtable or Notion like options for these. We'd give you an Airtable template or a Notion template, which a lot of group programs do, which I think is really great. If you have, let's say, a content calendar, you can put the content calendar in Airtable or Notion. There are certain things, certain systems like that you build that could go in different tech. but group program management truly has to be done in Airtable for some of these very specific features, like being able to select your name from a drop down and that student is automatically linked to their primary client record. If you can't do that in Notion, it is going to really hinder the way you run a group program. Can you?
Yeah.
I'm curious. Tell me your thoughts there. And I have another like use case. I'm like, here's why I use Airtable. So tell me your thoughts about this. I am curious about another thing that we do when someone submits their onboarding form, this is just very basic beginner stuff. Like if someone hasn't submitted it in 7 days, we can automate a reminder email to say, hey, haven't seen you submit this in 7 days. What's up? And it will automatically integrate without using Zapier or anything, a Gmail
Yeah.
message saying, hey, haven't received this. Here's a reminder to fill out your onboarding form. Can Notion automations do anything like that?
No.
Okay, cool.
No.
Great.
Airtable has so many integrations that are native to Airtable. Notion doesn't have that without using a third party. So with the Notion automations, all that you can do is add a page to that particular database that you've just searched. So if there's a page added to this one, add it to this one. But it's kind of replicating. And like I said, there's no option to link the two. It's really good at updating like status properties, but not linking records or the onboarding process that you need to run your group program. So it doesn't have the native forms like Airtable does. I actually, via filling out a form for Ashley, I saw you were using fill out forms.
Mhm.
And I was like, what's that? Why is she using that and not Airtable? So I start investigating, and that integrates with Notion. And with that, you can obviously choose the main client record. So for taking in onboarding form, that's like an alternative, I guess. You can create
Mhm.
the form and fill out and link it to your database. But again, you're going outside Notion to do that. It's not within the platform. Sorry, the Gmail, no, you can't. You can send a Slack notification, but again, that's just internally. You're not able to link to Gmail to send a reminder email or an onboarding email. And we do a
Mm.
lot of that in systems over stress via automations and the integration with Gmail or Outlook or whatever. Notion doesn't have that capability
Got it. That's really helpful to know because we use that Gmail integration so much.
so
And
much.
for onboarding, offboarding, resigns, engagement, like you want to be able to automatically message and engage with your clients based on a variety of different points in your program. Like I said, 7 days and 7 days since they joined and they haven't filled out their onboarding. Or once they fill out your client results tracker and they share with you that they've submitted a win, you want to email them and say, yay, you've submitted a win. By the way, here are all the other wins that you've submitted. That's the magic of that's the future standard of group programs because of systems over stress. And if Notion can't do that, then you should not be managing your group program inside of Notion. Can
I
you share your
wouldn't.
screen? I would love to see just what the automation dashboard looks like and like what's possible there, because that's the biggest thing. I think folks who are kind of trying to make the decision, all they think is like, well, Airtable does automations, but so does Notion. And they don't get to see truly the limits. So I'd love to see the back of this. Okay, look at this.
Okay.
I will tell you,
So
Debbie,
aesthetic, right?
your Notion, like it looks beautiful. And I think
Mhm.
especially with, you said you have undiagnosed ADHD. I have diagnosed
I think,
ADHD. It
yeah.
can feel so good to look at something like this. Like it
Mhm.
feels like, oh, like it's so clean. Airtable can feel maybe a little more rigid, but there's some benefits of the rigidity there. But I like, look, this is beautiful. I will give it that. But show me your sales hub.
This is it. This is what I was trying to build. So, like, there would be your offers table, so your product suite database that we can link to. Great. This is what I was trying to pull in.
Mm,
So, similar to Airtable, you have the summary and everything you pull in from your Zap. It cannot link to the primary client record in your client management hub or table here.
got it.
It just simply can't do it. And I'm like, that's so simple. Why does that not exist?
Hmm.
Another thing that kind of annoys me is what I loved about like your group programs and your sales hubs is the formulas for the summary, right? Where you can do Debbie Murphy, what the product, how much it was.
Yeah.
Notion doesn't allow you to do that. In fact, their formulas don't allow you to create that like text for some reason. It's very
Okay.
complicated.
So you can't do like lookup fields. Can you do lookup fields?
Yes, they're called
Okay.
roll-ups, but yeah,
Got it.
yeah, you
Got it.
can
Got it.
do that.
Okay,
But
cool.
this is the thing with the automations. The automations can update like these, like single selects, multi-selects. You can't update like roll-ups or relational fields, linked records, anything like that. So this is
Mhm.
it. I'll just show you. It's so basic. So your new automation.
All of
I
you that
got
have told
so
me
excited.
Notion does automations, no, it barely does. Okay, keep going. I truly haven't seen this, but it's like so funny to me. Okay, keep going, keep going.
I got so excited that this was released that I upgraded my plan to the paid plan. So
Yeah.
instead of the free Notion, it was like $8 a month or something for this. And then I started playing around with it, being like, why? So yeah. So your trigger is basically when like a page or a record is added here, or one of these are updated, I guess.
Okay.
So that's it, basic.
Oh. Oh. Okay.
You do this. And then you can add a page to another database, edit a page in another database, which in and of itself has so many problems,
Yeah.
or send a Slack notification. But here's the thing, I can't say when a page is added and the payment status matches received. You can't do that. So, like, you can add this and say payment status received or whatever. But then
Wow.
it's like when either of those things occur. So this brings problems then for like our projected payments in our sales hub. Like you can't say when it comes in and the initial payment field, like the rebill number is blank to add a new record. You can't do any of it.
Yeah, it doesn't like think there's any conditional like in like logic groups and all those things. And to be fair, when
Yeah.
Airtable rolled out their automation, it was also very basic. They have just
Mhm.
grown so much in automations that like now like this is probably what Airtable's automations looked like a couple years ago, but now we're leaps and bounds ahead of this. And
Yeah.
so looking at this, it feels like this is like the dinosaur ages. And
Yeah.
can you only do those per like that little automation section, can you only look at them per table, or is there kind of like a high overarching like dashboard to see where all of your automations are?
They are database automation. So this one
Got
is
it.
the sales tracker database. Now you can do this where it's like, do you want it in the overall database or just a particular view? But
Yeah,
it's not like up here then has up here has like my database for my product suite. So putting the automation here doesn't carry across there. It's specific to that.
got it. This all
So
makes
basic.
sense, and I'll share my screen and share it in a second. But I just want to talk about like the this is where we're getting into like the Google Docs versus spreadsheet of it. This is like a very
Yeah.
pretty Google Doc alternative. And inside of Google Docs, you
Yeah.
can make tables and like you can like make the tables pretty and things like this is like a
You're
barely
frozen.
half a step up from Google Doc tables, it feels like. I'm curious if you would ever just embed your sales hub view inside of your sale, like your Airtable one inside of your Notion, like sales tracker. Cause you can do that with Notion, right? Look at the difference. Look at the difference. Like I would
It's not the vibe.
Yeah, and so if you scroll up, you can have this pretty like sales tracker banner and everything in your product suite, these like the Google Docification of it, but then embed Airtable tables and views inside of it. So still using Airtable as your database solution, but you can use Notion as like your interface or kind of like your internal access point. That's I think now seeing this was also helpful too. That's listening. Like this is a very in real time learning thing for both of us because we're trying to figure out like why use Notion over Airtable. Like we wanted to be really clear, and as we're both experts in the platform, it's helpful to kind of to come up with these solutions together. So that's how I would still you can still have this as your sales hub, but the data is living inside of Airtable.
Yeah, that's it. So like for this stuff, definitely I still my sales hub is staying in Airtable. So that's going to be like my financial hub and my quiz program, not program, course. Um and when I do like group programs for my clients, I will continue to recommend and use Airtable for that.
Yeah. Something that I think that people I see this all the time. I see these Facebook messages that are people that say, I'm moving to Notion. Fuck Airtable. I love Notion. I'm moving everything. I'm spending the weekend migrating everything over to Notion. Woo, Airtable. And I'm like, you'll be back in some capacity because you're going to realize the
Yeah.
limitations. And I think that that happens all the time when people want to jump ship to software. They think like, oh, this one, I need to move everything over. As both Airtable and Notion experts, we are like proof that like you can use both for different reasons. So it is okay to have Notion and Airtable. You do not have to pick one. And I think that this is a really great example to see like show us your dashboard. I'm so curious to see how like the things that you love about Notion and like how this can work, but then also how Airtable kind of can support the data behind your Notion. So you're already showing this. Walk us through it because it is beautiful.
I mean, it's pretty, but if there's no point in it being pretty if it's not functional, right?
That part.
For me, ClickUp was too much for me in terms of task management, right? Because it's just me. I don't have an agency. I don't have a team. Airtable didn't really have the capabilities I needed. Notion didn't have the capabilities I needed. They've only just updated their recurring task automation. So just show you what I mean, like in this task manager. So this is now like my daily task manager, what I have to do, what I'm working on, what I'm waiting on. And then over here, I have templates for these like recurring tasks. Yes, I'm doing the MDE email package at the moment.
Hmm.
So before, you used to not be able to set a due date on those tasks. So this one, for example, I do every Wednesday. So every Wednesday, I would have a new task here to do that task, but the due date could be back in January when I first set up the task.
Hmm.
It would never update the due date. Now it's so much better because you can come in, it's set to repeat every week and you can edit it. And then they have this option that's like at today. So every Wednesday that updates at like midnight and it's like it's due today. So that to me is giving me a little bit more calm in terms of task management. So yes, I love it for that.
Yeah. Something I want to just add here is that it's so important to be like when you have different workflows in your business, when you're trying to figure out the best system for task management and the best system for group program management, you're gonna have different needs and different like red flags and different like absolute like no-goes. And so here, like Debbie is outlining some very specific, I needed something to have a today option. You don't necessarily need that as much inside of group programs. So like it makes sense that her tasks are working inside of here. So
Yeah.
If Notion has been working for you, there's a reason, like because it was built for to like with
Yeah.
task management in mind or with content management in mind. It was built with those things in mind. I don't think it was built with group program management in mind. And so it doesn't solve a lot of the things that Airtable does solve for us. So it totally
Mm.
makes sense that there are things that really, really work well for your business inside of Notion and really, really don't. So I think that that's a cool thing just to like know that there's no all in one tool that's perfect for absolutely everything. And I really like that you are utilizing the best of the best in each software.
Like with the content hub, if you did have a team and every Tuesday you had to go in and review whatever your designer or copywriter had did, you can have that automation in Notion. It can be when the status of this is updated to this, do this. It's simple. But the intricacies of running a group program and the automations needed, it's not possible for Notion. You need to have Airtable for that. Like it doesn't work in ClickUp. It doesn't work in Notion. Airtable
Mhm.
is the only option, in our opinion, that works for that in this industry for sure.
Yeah, and I've been teaching Airtable for years now, since like 2019, I think. And something that I used to teach content management in Airtable, and I used to teach business management and task management inside
Yeah.
of Airtable. And what I realized is like I will not die on those hills. Like I can be convinced that you can manage your content inside of Notion, or you can manage your content inside of ClickUp. I
Yeah.
cannot be convinced that you can manage your group program inside of those softwares. And so that's
Impossible.
why when
I mean,
folks go
you
ahead.
can if you want to have a very manual process, right?
Yeah.
And you still want to do all the things yourself and you still want to send the emails and be checking every day. But if you wanted to do what it's designed to do and give you freedom and still provide that amazing client experience, you need Airtable for that. Like point
Yes,
blank period.
you can't grow a scalable group program in Notion or ClickUp or anything, because as you grow, the manual work also grows. And that is like
Right?
the antonym of scalable. And so that's really like, it's been so helpful to get that clarity over the years of like, it doesn't feel authentic for me to say, you can't manage your content anywhere else, because like objectively, I'm like, yeah, you can. And it gets the job done. But seeing these other things, it doesn't get the job done. I want to share my screen, and just because we looked at Notion's automation capabilities, I want to show Airtable's
The different
capabilities. Um, so this is the database that I just gave Debbie a quick copy link, and she was able to embed that right inside of Notion. So you can still use Notion as your little like wiki hub, but the data lives here. So we've got our sales log, and you'll see here, this is grouped by client. You can group by, I think that there's way more robust ways to like visualize like the data inside of Airtable over Notion as well. But if we look at these automations and create one, you're going to see you have your own separate like little page for it, which already gives it like a little more energy than just like that little pop up that Notion has. But you have
yeah.
all of these different triggers, which is like, so when a record matches a condition, when a form is submitted, when a record's created, when it's updated, when enters a view, you can schedule things at scheduled times, when a webhook is received. And that's a very powerful automation trigger that a lot of us don't really need to get into, but just know it is very, very robust, and like makes it so you can pretty much automate all of the things inside of Airtable. But having all of these different options helps you like any part of the journey of your group program. So if someone submits that form, if a record matches a condition where, like I mentioned, the date is 7 days past, like those are all different triggers and use cases to start triggering automations. So we've got that. But then what we've also got, what we mentioned that Notion didn't have, was conditional logic. So that means we say, let's say a student submits a form, and if the condition is like pay, like it's an application form, and let's say it's that their monthly revenue is $10,000, and you, in your mastermind, you only want to work with people who have $20,000 above. You can say if the condition is met where their revenue is under $20,000, send them an email that automatically rejects them and then like directs them to your lower offer or something like that. So you can have that, and then you can also have one say otherwise, if it's $20,000 or over, automatically accept them. There's so much automation capability you can do right inside of Airtable that makes it just so easy and dynamic to like run and manage your group program. So that's why when people specifically ask me, what are the differences between Notion and Airtable? I hope this episode makes it clear that like Notion cannot hold a candle to Airtable when it comes to managing group programs. There's so many other reasons, but these automations are like one of the biggest ones for sure.
Yeah. It's the biggest standout one because like I said, otherwise, you're just doing it all manually, and that's not what you want when you have a group program that you're trying to scale. You need the automation, and
Yeah.
so many people shy away from them. Like, yes, we want them to be simple. So at a glance, Notion's automations could be like, this is going to be amazing. It's not too complicated. Yeah, well, it also doesn't work. So you need Airtable.
Yeah,
I can't
because
believe I upgraded.
are you on the free plan of Notion? Or did you down? Are you still paying?
I'm still paying. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm still paying because I want to have the, like, access to it when and if they do build it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just so disappointing.
And I'm sure they might get there, and that's the thing about software is, like, they're gonna change and they're gonna grow, but Airtable's already light years ahead, so when Notion grows, for sure, Airtable has grown by then too. And so
Yeah,
it's really like yeah, it's kind of the we want you to be, especially if you're scaling a group program, we want you to be on a software that can really grow with you and you don't feel limited by. So to think, "Oh, Notion is simple and it's easy for me to have everything in Notion and not have to log into 2 different platforms." If, like Debbie said, if Notion doesn't work to run your group program, then it's not simpler. It's harder. And so there's definitely like that's some of the benefits of picking the right tech for the job.
yeah. I mean, Notion is great for, like, designers or people that like simplicity and they just want basic aesthetic things. But
Yeah.
if you want actual, like, automations and capabilities and those intricacies, you need Airtable.
Yep.
Just
And
stick with Airtable.
that's the hill I'll die on, which is like, I care about your data. I care about you growing your group program and I care about you automating the hell out of everything. So you can just focus on your students and their results and improving your program, the things that like, I want to get you out of the admin. And that's personally my like gripe with Notion is a lot of the things that you have to set up are more aesthetic than helpful, at least to me. It's
Yeah,
like you get to move things around and it like it scratches an itch for like creative and potentially neurodivergent brains to be like, I get to build this exactly how I want. For me, bullet journals, like starting from scratch is incredibly overwhelming. And so the blank page of Notion can feel like a lot. And so that's why I personally, with my neurodivergentness, like and thrive inside of Airtable because you have some creativity with views and filters, but it's much more rigid than Notion. And for me, that's a good thing.
right. I mean, I didn't even touch then on, like, the Airtable interfaces and how you can pull all that data into just a one-page shop. You can't really do that in Notion. You need widgets and different things outside of Notion to create your graphs and your pie charts and all the things. Whereas in Airtable, you can just click, 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 boom, there it is.
Yep.
Um, and I mean, the information that we get from that when we're planning and reviewing and trying to scale is just invaluable.
Yeah.
So good.
Debbie, I feel like I hope this was validating for you because it's also validating. It's validating for me as well. I think to kind of sum it up, just the clarification of the spreadsheets are to Airtable as
Airtable.
Google Docs is to Notion. I think that's so huge. And I think that's going to help people have a lot of clarity. If you care about your data and the integrity of your data and scaling and automating, that's not where Notion thrives. And that's really where Airtable thrives. And that's why it's so imperative to run your group program there. And like
Yeah.
we said, I really wanted to bring a Notion super fan to the podcast. So it wasn't just trash talking Notion the entire time because there's legitimate reasons to want to be inside of Notion, but there's a beautiful marriage that can be merged if that's something that's important to you. So it doesn't have to be either or in terms of your entire tech stack. You have to manage your group program in Airtable, but there's other ways that you can continue to use Notion. And I think the biggest thing that I just want to say is that you do not have to spend a weekend migrating everything off of Airtable and into Notion, or even migrating everything off of Notion and into Airtable. If you start to love Airtable, you can use them both for the purposes that they're designed for.
Exactly. Like I said, my sales hub is staying in Airtable because the data that comes from that is just beyond amazing. And when I do the group program management for my clients, that will always be Airtable.
Great.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share? I'm so happy that we'll have this to refer to people, but any other final words?
No, I think that's it. It like when Ashley invited me and onto the podcast, I said, like, that's the $1 million question because it's
Mhm.
what everybody asks. What is the difference between the two? And it's just if you want the easy life with the automations that work to allow you to step away from your laptop and your phone, Airtable is the best option for that. So stick with Airtable and sign up to Systems Over Stress because it's brilliant.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, Debbie, thank you so much. Where can folks find you on the internet?
Instagram mostly, it's debbiedoes.co, and I hang out a lot on my email list. I have a weekly email series, and the link is in the bio if you want to sign up to that. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Of course. All right, y'all. See you in the next episode. If you're committed to getting your clients results and creating the go-to coaching program in your industry, we want you to join us. Click that subscribe button on your favorite podcast app or YouTube to see all the systems, strategies, and behind-the-scenes stories of what it takes to create the most impactful coaching program you can.